What does first cut mean? In software engineering, I sometimes see first cut in a context where it could mean first version. Is it some idiom? Where does it come from? Does it mean literally first version, or is there any emotional subtext? Or did I misunderstand its meaning completely?
The first cut is the rough cut that is accepted by the editor, the director, and the producer of a film, usually without sound, music, or titles. Selection and sequence are basically fixed, although changes can still be made. The later film is visible. Detailed fine cut starts out from its proportions, structures, rhythms, and emphasizes them. From the 6 stages of editing as a film director in the earliest days of filmmaking, directors had to cut the film stock apart with scissors and then tape it back together to create new sequences from Adobe. In the context of software, I have never heard this term in my entire career in that domain. But it is clear that the expression refers to an alpha version of the software, possibly a pre-alpha version. See software release cycle at Wikipedia.
Adding to Graffito's answer, I've encountered the term many times in UK software development organizations. First cut software is certainly pre-alpha, and usually never seen outside the development team. It usually means the first version that works well enough to evaluate. When you're doing something that's new to you, you quite often want to see at an early stage if what you're doing actually makes sense. Does the UI provide the necessary controls? Does the algorithm run at a plausible speed? What is obviously missing? What is clearly unnecessary when you try using it? A first cut may be explicitly a prototype, intended to guide the design of a real implementation, or it may be intended to be developed into a real product. Irrespective of that, it's a test for the practicality of a concept, which lets you see if you're on a plausible path, or if you need to rethink your approach. A first cut may be a formal part of a development process, or it may simply be the stage at which a developer first wants to show their work to a colleague or a supervisor, to get a second opinion.
It simply means a first, presumably complete in some way, such as an alpha version or minimum viable product version of the software or documentation, which is expected to require further work before it is finalized. The origin is in the film industry. Rough cut and variations. The rough cut can take up to 3 months to complete. Each editor works differently. Sometimes the editor works alone and shows the day or week's work to the director and producer. Sometimes the editor and director work together, discussing every nuance. And the rough cut, the scenes are placed in order and checked for continuity. This all-important step in the editing process allows for revisions and new ideas to be tried and tested. Hint, make the edit points between the scenes very obvious in order to emphasize the roughness. Failure to do so may result in the editor committing to an edit before it is ready. First cut. The first cut is the rough cut that is accepted by the editor, the director, and the producer. Selection and sequence are basically fixed, although changes can still be made. The later film is visible. Detailed fine cut starts out from its proportions, structures, rhythms, and emphasizes them. Hint, never be afraid to let the first cut rest for a few days so everyone involved can see it with fresh eyes. We can see a fairly early example, by Software and Internet Standards February of 1971, in this document, which is not actually referring to software, but to specifications for software. I have also heard rough cut in this context, but I don't think there is a strong distinction between the two terms in the context of software. They both refer to something that is clearly unfinished but adequate to be discussed, evaluated, and improved upon, slightly different than the film industry definition.
First cut is a term used in film and TV production. Headline question: what does first cut mean? It means editing a film. The word cut is used because with old-style plastic film, you literally cut it with a pair of scissors to edit the film. The answer, and the only answer to the question, what does first cut mean, is editing film or TV shows. The fact that the overhead it used in an engineering or software field is irrelevant. It's utterly commonplace in English to reuse phrases extremely flexibly in totally disparate situations.
I've seen it a lot with documents, memos, policies, essays, even PowerPoints or engineering drawing pages, in the US military and consulting firms, which can be a little slang. Why? It just means first version, without much negative or positive feeling. Maybe a slight connotation of just taking a hack at something. Cut is a little colloquial. It would not seem strange to me in the context of software or a website or even a physical prototype. I wouldn't even blink or notice odd word choice. Just my experience, from a US Gen X military and corporate perspective.
If you want to support the channel, please consider liking and subscribing.